They died screaming. The voices carried thin and ragged through the alien broadcast system, stripped of dignity, stripped of mercy, echoing in 1,000 tongues across 1,000 worlds. The Galactic Empire had decided that Earth's women, captured soldiers, volunteers, innocents dragged from burned-out colonies, would serve as a message. And so they hanged them, slowly, publicly, not in shadows or in silence, but on a transmission beam cut into every frequency that humans could intercept. No shields, no sensors, no room for the luxury of pretending it had not happened. The Empire thought it would break something fragile. They thought humanity was brittle, that women's cries would snap the spine of a race barely a century into the stars. But as the nooses tightened and the bodies convulsed, it did not break Earth. It set something ancient smoldering. On Earth, in bunkers and scattered colonies, soldiers stood frozen in place, hands clenched, unable to speak. Fathers held sons too tightly. Mothers stared at daughters, every heartbeat hammering with a primal dread that carried its own answer. Never again. A silence fell heavier than any grief. It was not the silence of surrender. It was the silence before storm. And in the middle of that silence, seated in a chamber of marble and gold light years away, Ambassador Michael Rourke smiled. He was 43, sandy-haired, polite to the point of parody, the kind of man who thanked waiters twice and tipped when nobody else remembered. His jacket was pressed, his shoes gleamed, and his accent carried that faint Midwestern warmth that made him sound like a schoolteacher rather than what he truly was, a tactician honed by years of watching empires fall apart from the inside. The Galactic Council chamber swelled with alien voices, triumphant, sneering, drunk on cruelty. Some hissed, some clicked mandibles, some pulsed their throat sacs with colors approximating laughter. To them, humans were quaint primitives with noisy lungs and bad posture, amusing in their stubbornness, now finally humiliated. Rourke waited until their noises faded, then folded his hands neatly on the table. "On behalf of humanity," he said softly, "thank you." The chamber stilled. Even the translation drones seemed to hesitate, processing the tone. "Thank you? To the Empire? After they had hanged women like livestock?" He went on, smiling pleasantly. "It is not easy, you see, to unify a species. We bicker. We feud. We hold elections where half of us shout at the other half over trivialities. And yet nothing brings us together faster than watching our women die at the hands of strangers." Some aliens shifted in their seats, confused. Others chuckled. One, a serpentine official with jeweled scales, hissed mockingly, "Your gratitude is misplaced, human. This was punishment. You have no fleet strong enough to resist." Rourke tilted his head slightly, as if considering a child's arithmetic error. "Oh, I know. You've said that before. Weak, soft, fragile, sentimental. Always the same script." He leaned forward, lowering his voice, though microphones ensured every word carried. "But the thing about scripts, my dear friend, is that sometimes the play ends differently than you expect." They didn't hear the threat, not fully. To them, humans were still curiosities, mammals with too much humor and too much stubbornness. What they missed was the sharpened edge hidden beneath the cadence. The council chair, a hulking, insectoid aristocrat, rattled its mandibles and clicked for order. "This session acknowledges Earth's ambassador. The penalty for your insubordination has been paid in blood. Consider yourselves warned. Defy us again, and more of your females will adorn our broadcasts." There was laughter, cruel and heavy. Rourke let it ride a moment, let the contempt swell, then tapped a finger idly on the polished table. "Do you know what bothers me?" he asked with the softness of a teacher chiding a student. "It's not the act itself. History is filled with barbarity. Rome crucified. The Mongols piled skulls. The Empire here," he gestured politely, "hangs women. The method is irrelevant. What bothers me is the assumption that you thought we'd break, that you thought that fear works on us the way it works on you." The laughter faltered. He smiled again, polite, unruffled. "Back home, fear is breakfast. We eat it, digest it, and turn it into invention, into steel, into gunpowder, into rockets. Every atrocity you show us, you are composting the soil of your own grave. The serpentine official hissed angrily. Threats from cattle. We should burn your planet for insolence. Rourke didn't blink. He folded his hands again, calm as a man at prayer. Bless your heart, he murmured. The translation drones struggled. The phrase, simple to humans, carried no clear alien equivalent. The chamber shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether it was a curse, a blessing, or both. Rourke let the confusion linger like smoke. On Earth, the broadcast replayed again and again. Parents did not shield their children from it. Teachers did not switch it off. Preachers did not soften it with scripture. Every eye that watched it hardened. In farmhouses and cities, in mines on Mars and domes on Titan, in stations around Proxima, humanity stared at the atrocity and let silence forge steel in their bones. Rourke knew this silence. He had seen it once before, in his grandfather's eyes, when recounting Normandy. He had read it in journals of the Pacific War, in the black humor of soldiers who joked before charging machine guns. He carried it himself, carefully, beneath layers of charm and mildness. The insectoid chair loomed closer. You will return to your planet. Crawl back to your holes. Remember what happens when primitives challenge an empire. Rourke stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. His voice, when it came, was courteous, almost weary. We do remember. We have always remembered. Do you recall what happened the last time we were shown a broadcast like this? The aliens looked blank. They didn't know Earth's history, not really. They'd skimmed it like a student cheating an exam. Impressed by nukes, amused by the Cold War, dismissive of humans killing one another. They had missed the marrow. Rourke's smile thinned. We called it Pearl Harbor. He let the name sit there, untranslated. A human relic too dense for the drones to polish. It was supposed to frighten us. It was supposed to humble us. Instead, it woke us. Within 4 years, the flag of the aggressor was burning on their own soil. The chair rattled in irritation. You dare compare us to your petty ancient wars? Rourke adjusted his cuff. Not at all, he said gently. I'm comparing us to ourselves. You should have studied us more carefully. A murmur rippled across the chamber. Some aliens were puzzled. A few, wiser or simply more cautious, shifted with unease. Something in the human's tone did not match the caricature of weakness they had painted. Rourke inclined his head politely, as though excusing himself from dinner. Thank you again for your demonstration. You've saved us the trouble of explaining to our people what you are. They've seen it now, unfiltered. They know. And when humanity knows, he paused, letting silence swallow the words. Well, you'll learn soon enough. He turned, walked from the chamber, his footsteps unhurried, the picture of a man unconcerned. Behind him, the aliens whispered in confusion and irritation. They did not understand what they had just unleashed. Back on Earth, the silence was cracking. It turned to murmurs, murmurs to speeches, speeches to vows. Generals met in hidden rooms, faces grim. Engineers dusted off blueprints no one had dared propose aloud. Farmers volunteered sons. Mothers wrote letters that began with "If I don't return." Something ancient moved in humanity, something older than nations and flags. A memory of fire in caves, of wolves at the edge of the dark. It stretched awake, slow, deliberate, smiling a thin, predatory smile. And Rourke, seated now in a private chamber far from the council floor, poured himself a cup of tea. The porcelain clinked softly. He stirred once, twice, then raised it in a solitary toast. To patience, he whispered. Somewhere across the galaxy, Empire officials replayed their triumph, congratulating themselves on fear well sown. They did not notice the small line of text slipping quietly into their diplomatic feed, carrying a human proverb translated into 100 alien languages. It read simply, "You should have left our women alone." The retaliation came quietly, not as thunder, but as a pinprick of absence. On the mining world of Draxel, for the Empire had built a prison dome where 500 human captives labored in chains. They woke one morning to find the gates unsealed, the guards gone, and the control towers toppled as though by a passing storm. There had been no alarm, no battle, no explosion. The only trace left behind was a crude wooden sign hammered into the ground outside the empty dome. In English untranslatable, it read, "Compliments of the U.S. Marine Corps. Semper Fi." The Empire dismissed it as sabotage. A rogue cell, perhaps. An accident. But then another world reported a barracks emptied overnight, the armory stripped, not a single guard alive. Then another. And another. Each time, the only clue was some human relic, some baffling gesture. A deck of playing cards scattered across a command console, a bottle of bourbon left half empty on a throne chair, graffiti daubed in red paint that read simply, "Don't tread on me." In the Galactic Council chamber, officials seethed. Rourke sat among them, perfectly composed, smiling faintly as the chamber erupted in furious speculation. Tentacles flailed, claws slammed against tables, light sacks pulsed with outrage. Aliens demanded explanations, demanded punishment, demanded answers that did not exist. The insectoid chair rattled its mandibles and turned toward the human ambassador. "This reeks of your species. Admit it. Your primitives are responsible." Rourke clasped his hands together politely. "Accidents happen," he said. "Mining equipment malfunctions. Guards fall asleep. Bourbon appears mysteriously." He shrugged, as though puzzled by the suggestion of human involvement. "Surely your vaunted empire can handle such little inconveniences." A serpentine diplomat hissed, "You mock us." "Never," Rourke said warmly. "We take you very seriously. Too seriously, perhaps. That's why we're so patient." The words landed oddly, as if tipped with venom, though spoken in honey. The chamber shifted uneasily. Aliens did not understand patience in the human sense. They understood waiting for dominance, not the quiet art of enduring until the strike mattered most. Rourke leaned back, adjusting his cuff, his expression one of mild apology. "If I may, let me offer perspective. You mistake our smiles for surrender. But back home, a smile is not always agreement. Sometimes it's camouflage. Sometimes it's the courtesy of the knife sharpener, smiling as he hands you the blade he knows will be used against him." The council hissed and murmured, uncertain whether the human was threatening them or merely indulging in metaphor. Rourke's voice remained even, his eyes polite but steady. "We smile because it unsettles. We smile because we prefer not to show teeth until it's necessary. We smile because we've learned something your empire has not. Composure is the sharpest weapon of all." Outside the council, chaos rippled. Reports of human raids multiplied. Squads that did not exist on any registry appeared and vanished. Alien warships returned to dock with their crews missing, hulls scorched with strange insignias. Eagles, crossed rifles, lightning bolts. The Empire began to whisper the unthinkable, that perhaps humans had hidden more than they revealed. In a shadowed corridor after session, a younger alien official approached Rourke, her scales glimmering pale with unease. "Ambassador," she said softly, "your people are not what we thought. Tell me the truth, what are you?" Rourke smiled kindly, as though to a frightened child. "We're neighbors who wave across the fence until someone steals from our garden. Then we're something else entirely." He inclined his head. "But you'll see. Everyone always does." The next day, another broadcast reached the galaxy. Not from the Empire, but from humans. Grainy footage, amateur, but deliberate. It showed human soldiers in desert fatigues, standing over captured alien officers. They weren't shouting, weren't gloating. One soldier simply looked into the camera and said, "You don't have to hurt our women," and walk away. "We'll see you soon." Then the feed cut, leaving only silence. The Empire fumed. They demanded arrests, demanded retribution, demanded Earth crawl in apology. But Earth issued nothing. No official statement. No denial, no claim. Just silence. And silence, the aliens realized too late, was worse than defiance. Rourke attended another session, sipping from a porcelain cup of tea he always carried, unnerving in its fragility among claws and armored mandibles. The chair thundered at him. "This is war." Rourke blew gently across the surface of his tea. War is such a strong word. Conflict, perhaps. An unfortunate misunderstanding. But war. He sipped, eyes twinkling faintly. War is when we stop smiling. The serpentine diplomat snarled. Do you humans never tire of games? Rourke set down the cup, folding his hands once more. His voice dropped into a softness that made the entire chamber lean closer. You mistake humor for weakness. It is our shield. You mistake courtesy for submission. It is our sheath. You mistake patience for fear. It is our hunting ground. Everything you mock is a mask. And under that mask, he paused, letting the words draw tight as a bowstring. We are something you do not want to meet in the dark. The room pulsed with unease. Even those who had laughed before did not laugh now. Reports worsened. Entire convoys vanished. Colonies loyal to the Empire fell silent. A fleet sent to punish Mars limped back broken. Half its ships disabled by what reports described only as improvised weaponry, pipe bombs, railguns fashioned from mining equipment, kamikaze drones cobbled together from civilian satellites. The aliens could not comprehend how such crude tools could cripple fleets. They did not realize that for humans, improvisation was not desperation. It was instinct. At a private dinner hosted by neutral species, an avian official tried to jest. You humans are resourceful, but surely you can't stand against the Empire's full might. Rourke buttered a piece of bread delicately. Full might is heavy, slow, predictable. He smiled at the avian's confusion. Do you know why foxes survive alongside lions? Because lions announce themselves with a roar. Foxes slip in quietly and leave feathers behind. He looked up pleasantly. Would you pass the salt? The dinner ended in nervous laughter, but later the avian sent a private message to its superiors. Do not provoke the humans further. They are foxes with teeth. Weeks passed. The Empire grew angrier, more desperate. And yet, no matter how many fleets they dispatched, humans seemed already ahead, anticipating, redirecting, striking only when it hurt most. It was not the brawling savagery they had expected. It was chess played with live ammunition. In the council chamber, Rourke finally allowed the faintest edge into his voice. We once fought over trifles, gentlemen. Over paintings, over borders barely wider than a river. Millions died because of pride and ego. That was us on a bad day. His eyes sharpened, the smile never wavering. What do you think we will do on a good day, when our daughters are hanging from her ropes? The chamber went still. Not even the drones hummed. For the first time, the aliens glimpsed the shadow behind the human's courtesy, the steel hidden in silk. Rourke straightened, gathering his papers. If you'll excuse me, I have a call to make. He left them there, stunned, murmuring, trying to parse the line between humor and threat. They did not know where one ended and the other began. And that, Rourke knew, was exactly how humanity liked it. That night, in the dark belly of an orbital station, human ships rendezvoused without lights. Silent, sleek, patched together from civilian frames and stolen tech, they looked unimpressive to the casual eye. But their holds carried soldiers. Not vast armies. Just enough. Enough to show the galaxy what happened when you mistook a smile for surrender. Rourke stood at the viewport, alone, hands folded behind his back. The stars looked peaceful, ignorant of the storm. He spoke softly, as though to the ghosts of the women broadcast weeks before. You'll be avenged, ladies. And they'll never forget the lesson. Behind him, the comms console blinked with incoming transmissions. Alien commanders demanding explanations. Diplomats crying for peace. He ignored them all, staring out at the dark. And then, without turning, he whispered a line into the silence, a line carried secretly to every human fleet, every hidden squadron, every waiting soldier with blood in their throat and humor on their lips. Time to stop smiling. It began with the annihilation of Carthys Prime. The planet's surface lit like a struck match, one colony reduced to ash before the sun had even risen on its second moon. An Empire cruiser did it, swift, merciless, an answer to whispers of human sabotage. The broadcast was curt, gloating, nothing more than a voice declaring, "This is the fate of defiance." No names, no faces. Just another world burned to silence. The Empire expected terror. They received something colder. The few human survivors, scattered on orbiting outposts, didn't scream. They recorded the light. They studied the wreckage. They watched the flames curl skyward, then went silent. It was the kind of silence a predator makes when it stops running and begins to stalk. And in that silence, the trap began to show its teeth. On the outer rim, an alien convoy of warships warped into a dust-ring nebula, hunting for rumored human resistance. They found wreckage instead, Empire frigates torn open, their hulls caved from inside out. No human fleet in sight, no missiles on record. Only the soundless debris field and a haunting message drifting on emergency frequency. A human voice, cheerful, casual, saying, "Thanks for the supplies. We'll put them to good use." The council shrieked with fury. They demanded explanations. They accused Rourke again, their voices sharp, their gestures frantic. But the ambassador remained unbothered, penning notes in neat cursive on a pad of paper rather than datapads, as though recording minutes of a friendly meeting. Finally, when silence demanded it, he looked up. "You seem distressed," he said kindly. "You butcher our fleets," hissed the serpentine delegate, scales rattling. "You gut them like vermin." Rourke tilted his head, curious. "Because from our point of view, you've butchered enough of ours already. Women on ropes. Colonies turned to ash. How odd that the appetite feels different when you taste your own blood." The chamber roared with outrage, mandibles clicking, wings buzzing. He didn't flinch. He sipped tea, calm as morning rain. Then he placed the cup down and said softly, "Do you remember when I mentioned patience? Allow me to clarify." Outside the chamber, reports multiplied. Entire Empire fleets were disappearing, not in battles, but in orchestrated vanishing acts. Ships drawn into ambushes at the exact moment fuel cells ran low. Officers assassinated in their private chambers, with no sign of forced entry. Supply depots emptied overnight, every crate marked with some obscure human symbol. Coiled rattlesnakes, crossed rifles, crude grinning skulls. Aliens who survived spoke in whispers, too shaken to remain composed. "They fight wrong," one officer stammered before resigning his commission. "They laugh. They sing. They bleed and do not stop coming." He could not finish. His mandibles clicked uselessly, fear drowning words. The Empire realized too late that the humans had never been unprepared. Earth had spent decades watching, smiling, acting weak, while they stockpiled, trained, hardened. They had hidden their best behind masks. Special forces that never appeared in census reports, fleets disguised as cargo carriers, alliances whispered in backrooms with species the Empire had overlooked. The execution broadcast, meant to break them, had only been the key. The Empire gave them legality, justification, unity. Humanity had been waiting, smiling behind their teeth, until the moment came. Rourke confirmed it without ever raising his voice. In a private side session, a nervous avian official demanded answers. "What is happening? How do your people do this?" He smiled, pen still scratching notes. "We do what we've always done. We study. We wait. And when provoked, we strike not harder, but smarter." The avian trembled. "The Empire is too large. You can't possibly hope to." Rourke interrupted politely, never lifting his eyes. "Do you know chess?" The alien blinked, feathers ruffling. He smiled faintly. "In chess, you never beat the board by strength. You win by letting your opponent believe they're winning, until their king is cornered and cannot move. Then the game is over. That," he looked up finally, eyes sharpened with the weight of old wars, "is what you're witnessing." News spread quickly. Human troops appeared on planets the Empire had never even thought worth guarding. Colonies rose in rebellion, not by coincidence, but in coordinated strikes. Resistance fighters fought like soldiers, and soldiers fought like shadows. And everywhere, there were signs that this was not reactionary. It was orchestration. One captured human officer, grinning through blood, said to his alien interrogator, "We told you we were just farmers. Did you ever stop to ask what we grew?" "What?" the interrogator snarled. The human laughed, teeth red. "Soldiers." Then he bit down on the capsule in his mouth and was gone. Alien paranoia swelled. They realized humans had studied every flaw of the Empire, its arrogance, its slow bureaucracy, its obsession with spectacle. While the Empire celebrated power, humans perfected misdirection. Where the Empire believed size was invincibility, humans had learned that small, precise blades could gut giants. And all the while, Rourke attended council, courteous as ever, bowing slightly when spoken to, offering polite condolences for the Empire's difficulties. His words were silk, but the undertone made them tremble. "I do hope your supply chains recover soon," he said once, eyes twinkling faintly. "It would be a shame for your soldiers to go hungry. Hunger makes them unpredictable. And unpredictable soldiers can do such unfortunate things." The insectoid chair slammed the table. "This is an act of war." Rourke only shrugged. "Then perhaps it is war. But remember, you declared it first. You chose the rope. We're simply finishing the knot." By then, even some in the council began to doubt the Empire's strength. Quietly, they whispered of peace. They wondered if humanity had to be negotiated with, not crushed. But others clung to arrogance, insisting on escalation, insisting humans were bluffing. They did not know humans rarely bluffed, without 4 aces in hand. Reports confirmed it. An entire fleet, the proud Ninth Armada, had been lured into an asteroid belt, where human ships detonated the rocks themselves into clouds of shrapnel. Every Empire cruiser shredded in minutes. Survivors swore they heard human laughter over the comms as the attack unfolded. Rourke said nothing of it directly. He didn't have to. He only let the council stew, his faint smile sharper than any blade. When pressed, he leaned forward, hands folded. "You wished to teach us fear. Instead, you've reminded us of who we are. We are the children of Normandy, of Stalingrad, of the Somme, of every battlefield where we learned the simple truth. When pushed far enough, we do not yield. We become inevitable." The chamber was silent. No one laughed. No one dared. And as he gathered his notes, as the whisper swelled, as fear tightened its grip, Rourke turned toward the insectoid chair and added one last, almost gentle line. "We are patient predators, my friends. And you've just given us a reason to hunt." That night, hidden in the shadows of orbiting stations, entire human fleets decloaked, not with invisibility, but with timing so perfect the Empire never knew they were there. Hundreds of ships, patched, ugly, bristling with weapons. And they moved not like a mob, but like a knife sliding between ribs. The galaxy would remember that night as the beginning of the unveiling. And Rourke, watching from his chamber window, whispered quietly to no one in particular, "Check." The Empire called its war council in desperation. The chamber that once thundered with arrogance now hummed with fear. Too many fleets gone, too many officers dead, too many planets lost to uprisings sparked by the ghosts of human sabotage. The insectoid chair's mandibles clicked furiously as he pounded the table. "We crush them now or we die." No one contradicted him outright. But silence weighed heavy. Even the loudest advocates of annihilation shifted uneasily, their minds clouded by reports of impossible ambushes and grinning human soldiers carving through units 10 times their number. And sitting at the end of the polished table, serene as a priest among wolves, was Rourke. His jacket was neat, his hair combed, his face touched with that same unshakable smile that made them all unsure whether they were speaking with a diplomat or with their executioner. He cleared his throat gently. "I hear your frustration. I can only imagine the pressure. So many resources lost, so many fine officers missing. It must weigh heavily." He placed his palms flat on the table. "But I must ask, how many more of your sons and daughters will you hang beside ours before you learn the lesson?" The chair hissed. "Do not dare speak of our dead." Rourke leaned in slightly, voice calm, even tender. "But I must. Because every mother we lost, every sister, every daughter strangled on your broadcasts, lit a fire we cannot extinguish. You fed us our purpose. And when humanity finds purpose," he smiled thinly, eyes catching the light like steel, "the galaxy trembles." The chamber erupted, shouts and growls and chittering panic. Rourke let them scream. Humans had always let their enemies scream. It was in the quiet after that the knife went in. Reports poured in faster now. Human fleets, crude in appearance but devastating in precision, converged on the Empire's capital sector. They did not roar or announce. They struck at fuel lines, at communication relays, at food transports. Soldiers found themselves starving before they ever saw battle. Commanders tried to rally, but orders never reached ships cut off from the network. It wasn't conquest, it was dismantling. And then came the first strike on the capital world itself. Not bombs, not fleets. No, humans' new spectacle was the Empire's vice. They didn't mimic it. They subverted it. A single orbital defense cannon turned on its own city, fired in the dead of night, leveling a district before defenders could react. When the Empire scrambled to find the saboteurs, they discovered a single human squad had infiltrated days earlier, disguised as janitors. The galaxy reeled. A civilization that had ruled for millennia was being undone not by numbers, but by cunning. In the capital streets, alien citizens whispered fearfully. They had seen the execution broadcast weeks before. Now they asked one another in hushed voices, "What have we unleashed?" Inside his private chamber, Rourke poured tea again. He did it every night, a ritual as grounding as prayer. Tonight, he let the steam curl upward and spoke aloud as though to unseen companions. They thought we feared war. They never understood. War is our oldest language. We are fluent. A soft knock came at his door. A younger human officer entered, face grim. "Sir, the fleets are in position. They await your signal." Rourke nodded. "And the council?" "Divided. Half want to negotiate. Half want to purge us." "Good," Rourke said. He set down his cup. "A divided enemy is already conquered." The officer hesitated, then asked, "When this is done, what becomes of us?" Rourke smiled faintly, though sadness lingered beneath it. "History will decide that. But we will not be remembered as prey." The next day, the Empire's capital skies burned. Human ships descended, smaller and uglier than the Empire's gleaming cruisers, yet everywhere at once, darting between defenses, striking like hornets. Ground troops surged from nowhere, armed with weapons cobbled together from scavenged alien tech, fighting with a mixture of discipline and madness that the Empire could not counter. Alien commanders shouted for retreat, for reorganization, for order. None came. Communication blacked out. Panic spread. And in the midst of it, human soldiers advanced with terrifying calm, some even laughing as they fought, muttering old Earth songs under their breath. The council chamber itself shook with distant detonations. Guards scrambled, mandibles clicking nervously, claws gripping weapons. And then the doors opened. Rourke entered, flanked by two Marines in battered armor, their rifles held casually yet firmly. He looked untouched by the chaos, as if walking into a board meeting rather than a coup. He stepped to the center, straightened his jacket, and spoke softly. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Empire, you wished to make an example of us. You hanged our women to show power. Do you understand what you've accomplished? You did not break us. You unified us. You created what no council, no president, no general could, a singular human will." The chair rose, trembling with fury. "You dare." "Sit," Rourke said quietly. The word cracked like a whip. The guards around the chair hesitated, mandibles twitching, then slowly lowered their weapons. The chair froze, uncertain. Rourke continued, voice steady, polite. "You mistake courtesy for weakness. But courtesy is the sheath. War is the blade. And now you see both." Explosions thundered closer outside, the sound of capital defenses crumbling. Counselors glanced to the windows, to the guards, to one another, panic in every gesture. Rourke remained still, the only calm figure in the room. "Humanity will not enslave you," he said softly. "We will not slaughter your civilians. We do not need to. You will kneel because you understand at last that you are not feared. You are feared no longer. And that knowledge, I promise you, will linger longer than any hanging rope." The chair hissed, but its defiance cracked under the weight of silence. Behind Rourke, a Marine tapped his comm, listening, then nodded. "Capital defenses are gone, sir. Fleets in full control." Rourke inclined his head. "Thank you." He turned back to the council. "The game is over. You thought you were teaching primitives obedience. Instead, you taught predators patience. Checkmate." The chamber was silent. No one argued. No one dared. And yet, Rourke felt no triumph in the moment. Only inevitability. He thought of the women hanged on broadcast, of their faces frozen forever in pain, of their children who had watched. This was justice, yes, but also something darker. A truth humanity could never hide now. He looked around the room, meeting every alien eye. Remember this day. Tell your children. Tell your grandchildren. Humanity is not kind because we are weak. We are kind because it is easier than showing what lives beneath. His voice softened, almost a whisper. But cross that line again, and you will see us without the smile. The doors burst open then, a gust of smoke and ash rushing in. Another Marine entered, helmet under his arm, sweat streaking his face. Sir, this city's ours. Resistance is gone. Rourke nodded. He did not cheer. He did not raise a fist. He only straightened his jacket again, as if adjusting for a funeral. Then is done. Outside, the capital burned. The empire that had ruled for centuries, arrogant and invincible, now lay in ruins. And humanity, underestimated, dismissed, mocked, stood at its heart, revealed not as fragile dreamers, but as apex predators disguised in civility. In his chamber that night, Rourke poured tea one final time. He set the cup down, untouched, staring into the steam. "They'll never forget," he murmured. "And they'll never forgive. But neither will we." He rose, walked to the window, and watched the smoke drift across alien skies. The war was not finished. The galaxy would writhe and resist. But the truth was unveiled. The mask was gone. Humanity's place was carved in fire. And somewhere, carried on silent channels, a message pulsed outward, not just to humans, but to every species who had watched in fear and awe. It read, "Never again. Not our women. Not our children. Not while humanity draws breath." Rourke closed his eyes, hearing echoes of laughter, of screams, of marching boots. He whispered one last line to the night, a line that would etch itself into the galaxy's memory like a scar. "You wanted fear. You gave us purpose. And that will be your undoing." The stars outside glimmered, cold and eternal, as though listening.